Welcome to the Publishing Performance Show, the podcast that helps self-published authors turn their passion into a profit. Now, I'm your host, Teddy Smith, and if you're serious about building a sustainable business, then you're in the right place. Every week, I sit down with successful authors, industry experts, and publishing professionals who share their exact strategies they use right now to how they've grown their business, grow their readership, increase their book sales, and essentially to make a bit more money. Now, whether you're just starting out or you're looking to scale your existing publishing business, you'll walk away from every episode with actionable insights you can implement immediately. Now, if you're new here, it would really help me out if you could subscribe either on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you are. Just simply hit the subscribe button. It really helps the show to get more reach, which means we can get better guests for you and we can help you out in more ways. All right, let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really delighted to be joined by Kevin Tumlinson, who a lot of you will know for being a best-selling author, but he's also the Chief Brand Officer for Author Anchor, which is a service for getting VAs to work for authors. So thanks for joining me, Kevin.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Teddy.
Yeah, no problem. Well, you've obviously wear a million hats in your business. And like just before we started this conversation, you were just telling me about the million different things that you've got going on at the moment.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of solving like a different pain point, which is like helping you like fix your time. And that's one of the reasons I'm guessing that you got into Author Anchor in the first place. So do you want to just give me a bit of an overview about why you think about using a VA as an author?
Yeah. So like a lot of authors, I've got, just like you said, many hats, a lot of things happening at one time. And there's aspects of this business that I don't want to have to do anymore myself. So Author Anchor kind of offered an interesting opportunity. I originally had come on board. These guys, they're the guys who created a BookBrush.
Yeah.
Also created this service. And I had done a little bit of consulting here and there. I kind of helped them early on with rebranding BookBrush. And so they were kind of asking me my opinion on things regarding this. I love this idea. But the idea is to train VAs who can help authors to offload some of the stuff that's on their plate. And for a lot of authors, that is mostly going to be things like the marketing, social media management, things like that. We all have tasks that we know have to be done, that drive us a little crazy, that we don't want to have to set aside time and energy for, because most of us, a lot of us really just want to write. That's what we got into this for. And so that's what this business was set up to do, was to help authors find a budget-friendly solution to offload some of the bigger pain points of the business side of writing so that they can just write. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, perfect. And so a VA is a virtual assistant. That's what it stands for. So it's essentially just like having another employee in your author business. Yeah,
you could even just refer to them as an author assistant, because what we do is you can hire virtual assistants through a variety of sources. But what we're doing is we're inviting these people in. These are all remote workers. They're all in the Philippines. We train them in authorly things. We train them in all the services that you are accustomed to hearing about as an author. So, and we have there's like mandatory training every month for some of these things. We've done training sessions with them on things like BookFunnel, on Vellum, on there's some other things that some of these VAs are really good at, like Kickstarter and Shopify and things like that. So, and of course, BookBrush. Yeah. And so what you get out of the experience through Author Anchor is a little different than what you'd get if you went and tried to find someone on your own. First of all, we're vetting all of the assistants, training them to work with authors specifically, and then continuing that training as they go. And all that runs you like $750 an hour, which was a huge thing for me, because my first VA was like $50 an hour. This was years before Author Anchor existed. And my first VA cost me like $50 an hour. And they didn't understand my business. Yeah. Like they didn't understand what I was doing. And they kept trying to run it. Like they would try to run marketing campaigns as if I was trying to be the next, I don't know, Apple or something. And then they just couldn't click to it. And they didn't have, I had to spend most of my energy and time training them how to, do the things that were integral to my business. So this has been very different. Working with the folks in the Philippines, BookBrush had actually built their business using these same resources. So that's kind of the origin of this. People kept asking for a done for you marketing solution, because BookBrush has a bunch of different like they've got a social media service, and there's a whole bunch of pieces. But people kept asking, well, what would it take for you guys to just handle marketing for me? Because that's the biggest pain point authors tend to have, right? Mm-hmm. And there's just no model. There's no model that makes that affordable for the author and also profitable for the business, except for this one, which is train people and allow them to take over the marketing on a one-to-one basis for that author. So that's sort of the origin of it. Yeah. And it's kind of expanded from that.
Yeah. I mean, I've used VAs in lots of different businesses I've had. Yeah. Again, mostly for marketing, especially my e-commerce business. I trained them up on logistics and things like that, which was really, really complicated compared to an author business.
Right.
But you talked about handing tasks off, like marketing tasks. So what sort of marketing tasks are you talking about?
Well, the big one tends to be things like, there's two big ones. One is social media, right? A lot of authors don't want to have to deal with it. I'm one of those who does. I do a lot of social media stuff, but it's more of kind of engaging. I probably don't do it strategically enough. So I would bring in a VA on to help me kind of figure out, like, what's my strategy and what should I be focused on, and how do I continue to do things my way, but also fold in what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't like TikTok at all. So if I'm going to have a presence on TikTok, it's going to have to be a VA because I don't want to touch it. The other side is, so there's that side, and then there's sort of the ad side, right? So we have several VAs who are highly skilled with ad placement on platforms like Facebook. We're kind of training now specifically for platforms like Amazon ads. We want to fold in like BookBub ads and things like that. A lot of these platforms, once you've mastered one, it's pretty easy to master another. I don't want to have to deal with ads. I want to say, hey, here's my ad budget for the month. Go and get me as many new readers as possible using this money. So handing that over has been kind of fun and kind of key. There's always a question of trust when it comes to money and things like that. There's ways to kind of mitigate those problems, but I've found that, like, when it comes to ad spend or whatever, you're allotting a certain amount of funds to that, and how you get it to them is, basically it's all set up ahead of time. All they're really doing is placing and running the ads. So as long as you're in communication and checking in and you're monitoring, you'll eventually build trust with these people, because you'll see, oh, they're good at this, they're not good at that. We're going to work on this, we're going to ditch that, ever. And then it can basically get on autopilot. But those are the two main things, marketing wise, that VAs tend to help with. And then there's all kinds of, we have some who are good at graphic design, some are good at video, some are good at all the things, some are good at copywriting. So whatever they're not good at, frankly, AI is kind of filling the gap for a lot of skill sets.
Yeah. It's interesting you talked about ads, because one of the things I've learned about from doing this podcast is that nobody likes doing ads apart from me. So
you're welcome to do my ads. Yeah.
Now, when you're just starting out using a VA, you might not 100% know exactly what tasks it is that you want them to do.
Right.
Do you find that you, like, say, if you're working with Author Anchor, do you pick one VA and say, I want you to do this many hours, or do you use the service and then just tell Author Anchor what sort of needs you have, and they can split it out amongst them?
So here's how the whole thing shakes out. What happens is, first you set up a discovery call, which we'll give your listeners and your viewers a link to check that out. The discovery call is free. There's no obligations. You're not signing contracts. You're not agreeing to even do this. What I tell people to do is to come in with 2 lists. And one of those lists is, here's all the stuff that I hate doing for my business, right? And then the other list is, here's everything I think my business should have, new things I should be doing, or skills I should have that I don't have the time, energy, or patience for. I don't want to do it. And you bring those 2 lists in, you do this discovery call, and someone from our team talks to you and kind of gets a feel for what you're looking for. And then they will set up interviews with 2 to 3 VAs who match what you need as closely as possible. If none of those people kind of clicks with you, personality wise or skill wise or whatever, then you can request more, and they'll bring more. So that's kind of the gist of how it all works. I think I'm hitting around what you asked the exact question you asked. But as far as like determining what to hand off, what you should know going into this, there's two things. One, you can't simply just hand everything off that you hate to do, right? There's going to be some time. I'd say probably the first 2 weeks to a month, it's going to be all about learning how you work with each other, right? Because even though they're getting trained and they come in with some skills, you still need to learn how you work together best. And that's going to include things like how do we both prefer communicating? You know, what skills is my VA strong in and what are they weak in? What are my strengths? What are the things I like to do, but what do I hate to do? So maybe I'm holding on to some things because I like it. How do they assist me in that, or how do they keep their hands out of it? So I always tell authors when they first start working with a VA, there are some tasks you can use to kind of help break the ice to figure out, how things are going to work for all of you. And one of those is like, and I always use Kickstarter as the example because that's something I'm kind of preoccupied with right now. But let's say that you are bringing on a VA who has a skill set in like establishing Kickstarter campaigns, running them, making them successful. The first task I would have them do, week 1, take 2 hours and create a process for how to start and run a successful Kickstarter campaign and report back to me with what you've done. Okay. That's 2 hours, $7.50 an hour. So that's what, $15, something like that.
Yeah.
So you're spending $15 and you're getting several things out of this first project. Number one, we're seeing how well they pay attention and follow instructions and how they execute. Because you're giving them the leeway to execute on this project. And this should be something in their skill set. If it's not in their skill set already, this is an opportunity for them to learn something or whatever. The second thing you're getting out of this is a process. You have some written documentation, walkthrough videos, whatever it is that they managed to create in that 2 hours to establish how this works. That means that even if they don't work out, now you've got something you can use for the next VA, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, eventually, all these VAs, I worked for an attorney one time, and he said something to me that has stuck with me forever. He says, I said something about, well, I'm going to work with you for a while, but I've got some other things coming up, and I'll probably ditch out, and just so you know, this isn't like permanent, He says, I don't buy people, I rent them. And that's always stuck with me. You're not investing in a VA who's going to be with you forever. You're basically leasing time with this person. So the more you can have them help you shape your business and the way it works and the way these tasks should be executed, the better off you're all going to be. And then the other aspects of this that you get out of an assignment like that as a first assignment is you're going to learn how you both prefer to communicate with each other. So I'm someone who hates communicating via email because I get so much email. It stresses me out. I don't want to monitor email 24/7. So I prefer tools like Slack. Has caused me some anxiety in my life in the past, but it is, to me, one of the better ways to communicate with team members. But there's other things kind of like that, Discord or whatever. So the VA is going to work with you in whatever you prefer. And if you establish up front, like, here's how I prefer to communicate, here's when I'm around, all those things, you get all that smoothed out up front. So yeah, that's what an assignment like that is for, is to teach both of you how to work together and what your preferences are. And you can change things. So like if they spend that 2 hours and the results aren't great, you can give them another 2 hours and let's refine that. Okay, that didn't quite work for me, or let's do something a little different this time. So you spend your first week, because you're committing to 10 hours a week when you do this. So that's what, $75 a week. I think that's math. I think I'm mathing that correctly.
10 times 7
I'm a writer. So yeah, your total investment for the month is just under $300, like $299. Okay.
Yep.
And that works out to about $750 an hour. So that's your base commitment. It can go up from there, and you can actually kind of get some price breaks when you do add more hours, but you'll have to talk to the reps about that. But for most writers, I think 40 hours a month is probably, plenty of time to do what you need to do once you've established a strong relationship. Anyway, I digressed, and now I forget the point I was about to make with that. But the kind of comes down to spend the first couple of weeks learning how to work with each other. Yeah. When I first started doing this, by the way, I felt like, I'm spending more time trying to get up to speed with this VA. I feel like I'm working for them at this point. It was a little rough, but once we figured these things out, then I could say things like, okay, now that we have a process for this, go and spend 2 hours doing this.
Yeah.
And I like to work in like 1 to 2 hour increments when I can, but sometimes you get to a point where it's like, okay, look, I know this is going to take a while. Take your 10 hours this week, and this is the only thing you're working on, or here's a list of tasks. Divide your time up and get these done, but report back to me at 5 hours.
Yeah.
Report in, send me a note, let me know where you are, what questions you have. Those are the things that are important, is to keep that line of communication open. And I like to offset my time, by the way. I'm not going to be on call. And these VAs are 15 hours ahead of me. So depending on where you are, there's going to be some time differences. So a lot of them adapt and work these bizarre hours to me. But I always say, look, it doesn't matter when you communicate. Nothing I do is so critical. There's nothing we're doing together that's so critical that, you're going to need an answer from me right now or the whole thing falls apart. Like, leave a message for me in Slack. I will see it. I will respond to it. And I have rules about when I want to do calls and things too. Like, I tend to not do calls before noon on any given day if I can avoid it, because most of my morning is writing time. And I've got other tasks. So I try to keep all my tasks in the afternoon. So I've established these guidelines and rules with my VA, and it ends up being a well-oiled machine by the time it's done, but it does take time to get there. That was a long-winded answer, Teddy.
No, it's a long-winded answer, but I think that's exactly what people want to hear. They want to hear your exact experience. If you think back to when you first got your first VA, especially using your author anchor, what was the tasks that you got them to work on at first?
So this is where I ended up having to kind of rethink things and come up with that sort of ultimate task, a starter task, because at first I tried to just hand everything off and I was a big mess. Yeah. Here's all the things I do. And it just does not work that way. Think of, like if you got hired for a job with unclear guidelines, an unclear job description, and someone just handed you like a list of tasks that they hate doing, you're probably going to fail at this job in the first week or two, a month, whatever. And we would actually have authors who got frustrated and kind of walked on this program because of that, because their expectation was, I want them to do all the things I don't want to do. Communication is the most important aspect of this. You have to first have some compassion, because, you're talking about working 10 hours a week with these people, right?
Yeah.
They may have other clients, unless you're willing to kind of up it, go to 40 hours, whatever, you're going to have to compromise a little. You should be handing off things that are first highest priority that you don't want to have to work with.
Yeah.
And then as each of you acclimates to how best to accomplish that, then you add something else in. And then eventually it's going to come to a point where it's like, people can only do so much in 10 hours. So you're going to have to either give them more hours or hire a second VA or whatever. When I started doing this, the things that I was handing off, it kind of went sideways, because I that's what I was doing, was trying to get rid of all the things I hate doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with my email. I don't want to deal with my calendar. I don't want to deal with booking myself on for travel to conferences and things like that. But I also don't want to deal with the marketing. I want to hand off my podcast and let you do the video editing. I want you to start up a whole new TikTok thing. I went overboard. And it became obvious pretty quick that wasn't going to work. She wasn't capable of keeping up with all that stuff. And it was unfair of me to ask her. But it was almost good that we had that trial by fire, because now we both realize what our limitations are and what our needs are. But I want you to learn from me before you do this. I want you to say, okay, what's reasonable? I get 10 hours a week. That's what I'm committing to. No contract, by the way. So if you do this for a month and it's not really working, you can always cancel this.
Yeah.
But I'm getting 10 hours a week. How do I effectively use those hours to do something that benefits my business? If you think like that, you're going to do much better at this. Think in terms of, this is a human being, not a machine. You're going to have to give them the resources that they need to do the job. So if you need them to do layout for you in Vellum for your books, then they need to have access to Vellum. So you need to be able to give them access to that software. Same, if they're going to be, because some of these VAs can do first reads for you, help with the editing, things like that. So they're going to need access to whatever format you prefer. If you want them to do the work directly in Scrivener, then you're going to have to give them access to Scrivener somehow. So there's going to be a lot of this. And you're going to have to figure some things out as you go. But as long as you're conscious of that and aware and compassionate, you're going to do pretty well. Yeah. So I think that hits all the notes, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm thinking about getting a VA to help me with is with things like Book Clicker, StoryOrigin, BookFunnels, that sort of thing. So why don't we do a little case study about, like, exactly, say you and me, and you were going to hire someone to do some of that work for you. And the aim is you want to increase your newsletter size and also to get more people to sell more books through your newsletters. So how would you start with using a newsletter in that scenario, with using a VA in that scenario?
Okay. Well, first up, all those things you just said are things I would say to the person on the discovery call, so that they can go find you the best resource that matches what you need. I would, before I even brought a VA on, get your own process straight in your head, right? And on paper. Like, what are the things I'm trying to do? Okay, boom, 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 boom. What are the tools I need to do it? Boom, 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 boom. And get those accounts set up, figure out how you're going to share it. If you're going to use LastPass or something to share passwords or whatever, get all that stuff set up ahead of time, right? Just start thinking in terms of, like, before you ever even do the discovery call. Well, and you could do the discovery call, but before you actually agree to somebody, get all these things set up. Actually, it might benefit you to do the interviews and ask the VAs, have you done this before? What did you use? What tools are you familiar with? That might actually help you narrow down, like, what you need to invest in, right? Both in time and money, and kind of just have all that set aside. Put some thought ahead of time into what is your preferred method of communication? What do you want to try, if nothing else? What's your backup plan, right? Like, if you at first think, we'll just do email, but then you hate doing email, well, what's the alternative? What's another way that they can reach out to you? What software do you possess that they need access to, and what software do you need to acquire, or what can you get by with? Because maybe you write in Scrivener, but you could export that to Google Docs for them to do the editing, and that would be just fine. So they may not need access to all that, but putting some thought into that ahead of time, and then also asking for their advice, that's going to put you pretty far ahead. Yeah. And so, I mean, again, I think I hit all the notes there, but
so just get your processes in place first before you try and hire someone to do it.
And you want to get them to help you shape those processes when you start, but and sometimes that may mean building it from scratch. Like I said because Kickstarter, for example, is something I haven't done. So I'm not going to have a process for how best to do that. But if I told the people on the discovery call, I want someone who's proficient with Kickstarter, then presumably they are. You want to ask that VA some questions around that in the interview. And when you bring them on board, that's the time to leverage their expertise. Create for me a process. Make it so that I can understand it, and so that others can understand it. Because another thing that could happen later is, like, let's say you've been working with this VA for a while and you want to move them on to other things. This service is so inexpensive for a lot of us. I mean, I know $300 a month can get pricey for some people, can be pricey for me. But if I'm doing well, if this is working the way it's supposed to, it can kind of start to pay for itself. You might bring on a second VA, or you might bring on more resources to take on tasks. So your first VA, maybe she's great at, Kickstarter, but she's been excellent at getting you booked. I use my VA as a kind of PR rep to book me on podcasts and at conferences and things like that. Maybe she's just wildly talented at that. So I'm going to bring on a second VA that she can train to do the Kickstarter stuff for her.
Yeah.
And
It
she
sounds like,
becomes kind of the top.
I was going to say, it sounds like you might not even have done the Kickstarter campaign had you not had the help with a VA to get it off the ground. It sounds like,
and that's why I use that example, is because that's something I haven't really done yet. And I know everybody's probably rolling their eyes as super easy or whatever, but for some reason, Kickstarter intimidates me. So having someone kind of hold my hand through it and do some of that heavy lifting for me, that's been great.
Yeah. Russell Nolte's probably laughing at you right now.
Yeah, well, Russell's got lots of reasons to laugh at me. So.
Now, when you're working with Author Anchor, you've got that $300 sort of minimum a month. Is that generally working with one VA, or would you be able to like split those hours between like multiple different tasks?
No, that's one VA
for the 10 hours.
Yeah, and the way it really shakes down, it's $7.50 an hour when you factor in, because like Author Anchor has, in order for us to make money on the whole transaction, there's this $99 fee, I guess, that's associated with it, and then but the VAs get paid directly, so you can actually give them a raise if you want, which is something we always encourage people to do. Like, you can send them bonuses. You're in charge of what they get paid. It's just a $5 minimum. So yeah, that $7.50 is kind of like the bottom. That's all you have to pay, and you can get quite a bit out of that. But just like any business, I mean, if they're kind of bringing their game and they're helping you to grow your potential revenue, sometimes you want to share the wealth. So it's perfectly fine to do that. It's up to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Are there any tasks that you'd recommend not handing off to a VA?
Nothing illegal. No
dealing.
Yeah. There's going to be some discretion that has to happen here. I wouldn't get too personal with things, but some people do. Some people have their VAs communicating with their spouse or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't personally want that, unless Kara, my wife, Kara.
Can you break up with my wife, please?
my Kara is wanting to kind of come on board with some of this, and she wants to be a kind of COO of my business, and so I'm fine with that. And so she would communicate then, but I wouldn't want to do things like, my wife and I had a fight. Can you order some flowers for her? I mean, maybe I would do that, but I don't know. There's not a lot. I mean, physical tasks are going to be more challenging. So if one of the things you need someone's help for is to do things like, I have books that I've signed that, when readers, fulfill this specific set of tasks, they get this book or whatever. Or I've done a Kickstarter and I want you to send all the books or all the swag out or whatever. It's possible that you could do that, but then because they are in the Philippines, like, there's going to be like international shipping rates and things like that. So it's probably not wise to rely on them for that kind of thing. But then again, there are circumstances in which that might be fine. Yeah. So it's just, you kind of you got to look close at it. I mean, there's going to be things that you're wise not to hand off. You want to be cautious when you hand over like anything that puts you in a compromised position financially, for example.
Yeah.
Like, there are services now like LastPass, for example, you can actually use to set up a credit card that they could use on your behalf. If I were to do that, I don't think I would necessarily want to set up like just any random credit card. I think what I would do is maybe do a prepaid Visa or something and give them access to that so that they can use that for transactions on my behalf. But there's lots of ways to work around that sort of thing. So yeah, it just kind of comes down to the things that you hand off or won't hand off are going to come down to like the level of trust you build with this person, the confidence you have in their ability to take care of things and the confidence you have in their integrity, and then the practical costs of doing that. Yeah. That's about it. There's not a lot that because I work 100% in the digital landscape. So nearly everything I do is fair game to hand off to somebody.
Well, it sounds like you have quite a lot of different projects going on that you use VAs for. Do you think it's better to have like one VA or like that does multitasks on different types of projects and becomes more of a operations person, or to hire people for individual projects?
The approach I would take is to bring on one VA. If you're just starting at this, bring on a VA and focus on one particular thing that the two of you master together, like a Kickstarter or like ads or whatever. But aim for a level of proficiency where you would fold in another task. And then once you've kind of got it to a point where there's a saturation there where, they couldn't possibly take on more of those tasks, then you might consider bringing in a second VA and having them hand those things off. The great news here is that they're trained on that. They also know all your preferences. They know how you like to work. You can actually have them take care of all the stuff that you had to do with that first VA, so that that's not overwhelming you. Businesses, many businesses, especially in our industry, have been built on this whole premise of bringing in VAs and training them to take on these tasks on your behalf. So if you will think of yourself as being the CEO of this business, so you're actually more than the CEO. When you're an author, like you're the CEO, you're also the manufacturing floor, right? But this is the stuff you love. I don't want to have to behave like a business all the time, right? I have to behave like a business long enough so that I can form my, vice president or whatever I want to call her to go off and make sure the business works, so that I can concentrate on the parts that drew me to this in the first place. So I think it's perfectly acceptable to stick with one VA and have them do certain tasks for your career. It's also perfectly acceptable to train that person up to be the maven, the boss of a whole other crowd of VAs if you want. Yeah, form yourself a little army. I want to add something. I keep thinking about it and I keep forgetting to drop it in, but there is something I think everyone needs to consider. And I say this a lot, and it matters, but this should never be something that you are thinking, how am I ever going to afford this? Right? It should never be something where it's like, okay, well, now I've got to get a VA. How do I justify that expense when I'm just kind of squeaking by or whatever?
Yeah.
It should never be that. The only time you should hire anyone into your business is if doing so will increase your revenue earning potential. So if you're going to bring a VA in to help offload some of what you do, even if it's a struggle to afford that person, as long as the stuff they're taking on frees you up to earn more, then it's a good choice. If taking someone on means you got to, for some reason now I have to stretch my budget thinner than before, I have to give up on one meal a day in order to afford this VA. I mean, if it's going somewhere, if you can see like, okay, if I can do this for 3 months, then it starts to pay off, fine. But if you're just trying to justify it so that you can have a VA because you think that's what people do, this is not the right time.
Yeah.
Right. You want to make sure that when you bring on a resource to help you with your business, that just like any business, that's what business is. The reason businesses hire people is to increase their revenue, not to commit themselves to more overhead. Overhead should only come into your business when it gives you a chance to increase your revenue.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. I know a lot of people are just really keen to just take things off their hands, but actually they need to focus on making themselves make more money in the first place before they can actually think about hiring someone to make them more money.
Yeah, basically, really... if doing social media is costing you the time it takes to write the book that would have made you more money, then that's something you should consider. Can I afford $300 a month to have someone else do that social media thing, so that I can write a book that makes me $1,000 a month?
Yeah.
Right. So like when you can like massage those numbers in that way, this becomes a no-brainer at that point. Yes, I need that resource because me having more time means me having more revenue.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to aim for.
Yeah, definitely. And the last question I just wanted to go into, we're talking about hiring people from abroad, from like different countries. Are there any ethical considerations you need to think about when hiring people from the Philippines? Or some people have questions about like paying the salary and things like that. Yeah. So have you got any ethical considerations to think about?
Yeah, the first thing you should know is it's not a salary. You're basically paying for a contractor, right?
Yeah.
The laws in the Philippines and the laws in the U.S. make it very clear that you are bringing this person on as a pay-to-play resource. They are not your employee. So that That right there, it mitigates a lot of the problems with like taxes and things like that. You don't have to have forms or whatever. There may be some forms, but usually not. You can talk to the folks when you do that discovery call. You can ask them about that stuff, and they've got it all. They know it better than I do.
Yeah.
But there's no, you don't have to worry about taxes or any of that stuff. As far as ethical, so what's interesting is like the cost of living in the Philippines is dramatically different than it is here in the US and in the UK and other regions. That exchange rate, the last time I checked was like a month or so ago, but it was like 55 to 1. Like, so me paying this person this $5 an hour wage, they've been able to do things, pay for their apartment, pay for grad school, get a car, and it's a modest living, which is why it's a sort of gig economy kind of thing, really, which is why you should consider, like, eventually, if this person is really adding value to your business, make sure that you're paying it forward, right?
Yep.
And treat this person like a partner in your business is what you should be doing. Help me grow this business more so that you can earn more. And they're going to be really on board with that idea, believe me.
Yep.
So there's to me, there's never been an ethical question. It's funny because I get asked that a lot, but you're not exploiting anyone. There's no dark side to this. These are people that economy, there aren't a ton of jobs in the Philippines. And so it's got a booming sort of remote work economy. So you're kind of contributing to an entire nation's economy and bottom line by doing this, because you're providing revenue that they then go and fold right back into that economy. And it is all at will. They can leave anytime they want. You can replace them or quit the service or whatever anytime you want. So I think the best approach, honestly, is to treat this person, first of all, with the utmost respect and some reverence, because they're a partner in your business helping you to succeed. As long as you behave in that way, I'm a Christian believer, so that's sort of golden rule stuff. But whatever your particular flavor of faith or spirituality might be, this is humans interacting with humans. So treat them the way you would want to be treated, and you won't have any ethical or moral problems. They are more than happy to do this work. A lot of them are enthusiastic about this because it means financial liberty for them.
It's a win-win. So that's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, I love talking about this stuff. Getting VAs is one of the things I talk to a lot of authors about, and they didn't really know anything about it. And so when I first heard you were working with Author Anchor, I was like, got to get you on to talk about this.
Yeah.
If people want to hear more about Author Anchor, book a discovery call, do that sort of stuff, where's the next step? I'm
going to give you two URLs. The first is authoranchor.com, where you'll see a very handsome man represented as the chief brand officer on that page. And that can kind of give you, and there's a big old button there that says book a free discovery call. You can do that. If you go to authoranchor.com/promo, that would actually help me a little, because it shows that you heard about this from one of my things.
Yeah.
So, but either way, if you just tell them, I don't get a kickback or anything. I just like them to see that this stuff is working. But either way, if you just say in the call, hey, I was talking to Kevin Tumlinson, or you'll get emails and things like that. But if you just say you heard from me, you heard from Teddy Smith, that's appreciated. Authoranchor.com.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kevin. It's been great to chat to you. I'm really looking forward to starting work with VAs. I'm going to get them working on the book clicker and the StoryOrigin stuff straight away. So
be sure to share your story. I'm going to eventually start talking to people who've been using the service and doing some like podcast style calls to put on YouTube. So make sure you document how it goes for you. I'd love to chat with you when you've been doing it a while.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Well, brilliant. Well, thanks. Thanks for coming on. We'll speak again soon.
Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximize your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalized ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimize them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial.